Hi, and welcome to Personally Professional. Really looking forward to our guest today. She's been busy this past summer with kind of pivoting her business, and I'm really excited to dig into that. Today we're talking to Tionna Van Gundy. She is in Chicago, Illinois. Tionna is the owner of two Chicago-based event planning firms. Wedicity Wedding Day Detailing is focused specifically on weddings, whereas Fueled Events is a corporate events planning firm focused on large-scale event production for meetings, conferences, and special events. Tionna has a proven events background in multiple segments of the event production and hospitality industries, including being a certified wedding planner. With over 12 years of experience in hotel, food, and beverage operations, destination, and association management, Tionna has a cross-section of experience which has led her to founding her own event-based businesses in Chicago. As a producer of live events, she enjoys bringing together designs that elevate the guest experience using all five senses that make impactful and memorable experiences. Hi, Tionna.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Great to have you here today. I'm so excited to talk more about your businesses and what you've been doing these last few months.
Yeah. Well, looking at that bio picture, I was like, I definitely haven't been getting a haircut because my hair been. Yeah, we have taken a huge turn in our businesses the past couple of months through COVID and working through the pandemic. As you'd mentioned, I do own two different event planning companies. The first of which was Wedicity, which is a wedding planning firm that I've had for a little over 8 years. And, for a very long time, we've been planning weddings. And that's really what we've been known for a while. But as events have it and kind of the referral business brought to us some other opportunities outside of the wedding sector. So for a couple of years, we've been getting referrals for, small meetings, smaller fundraising events or gala events for associations and things like that. And we really liked working with those types of clients as well, in addition to our wedding business. So I decided to pull apart kind of our wedding work from our non-wedding work and make a separate brand. So that's kind of been in the works for the last couple of years. We just haven't pulled the plug until I think it was January or February of this year, right before, right before we knew what was going to ensue and what 2020 was going to bring us. And then when that happened, I started pulling apart the brand and making sure we had, Wedicity was really focused just specifically on the wedding market, and then Fueled Events being focused on, corporate work, brands, and that sort of thing. And then COVID happened and turned us all, upside down and inside out. And when that happened, we decided to really jump into the Fueled Event side, and we started thinking about what can we do. We needed to stay busy, as we saw with our wedding and really all of our work. So whether it was corporate work or wedding work, all of our work went from, we were on a very fast moving train to about nothing. So that was, and I know I'm not alone in that. That was pretty much the entire industry, restaurants, everybody in the hospitality world was, kind of put on pause. And like many of us, it's hard for us to sit still. So I was like, well, we need to keep doing something. All of our weddings are canceled. All of our corporate work was canceled or postponed. And I was like, well, we need to do something, to just simply keep busy, but also I wanted to keep my team employed. As a small business owner, your team is everything. And it was really important to me to keep them busy and keep them working, keep them learning, and just to keep, some type of income flowing in for all of us. So we started to dive into creating a drive-in event experience here in Chicago.
That is incredible. I mean, we might as well just keep going with that. I guess when I first saw that you were behind that, I was just like, wow, that is so cool. It seems like a huge undertaking. So I've been excited to talk to you about how quickly you were able to put all this in place. I know it's more than just a drive-in, it's a whole experience. So I'd just love to hear more about the process of how long it took you to get it up and running and all that.
Yeah, it's, never in my wildest dreams would I think I'd ever own or partially own or, have my hands involved in a drive-in anything. And here I was, in March, April, and May when everything was, kind of being put on pause and our events were canceling or postponing. And it took a couple of throwing things at the wall. I was like, I know we needed to stay busy. And it came down to, I really wanted to make sure that we were doing something that was, safe and COVID compliant, but also that still gives people something to do. My whole industry is, this whole industry and everything that I have ever known is bringing people together and gathering. And that was like the opposite of what we were allowed to do. So I was like, okay, so how can we do this safely? What can we do? And I went for a drive one night and just kind of drove around the city aimlessly, which is, my kind of way of decompressing. And I came back and my boyfriend has always been my, open ear and listening to me and letting me throw ideas at him. And we were just sitting there and chatting and we started talking about a drive-in. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I was just in my car for 2 hours roaming around the city. That's the only thing we can do is actually be in our cars. Yeah. So it was just kind of that like light bulb moment. And, I'm sure I'm not the only American who thought of this idea, right? It was just a matter of like going to market really quickly, coming up with the idea, making sure it made sense. It was COVID compliant. We were following all the rules and restrictions, and then operationally making it happen. So I think that was in April-ish, and it was kind of a blur. And I just kind of hit the ground running. I mean, I literally was like, this is genius. Like people can stay in their cars. They can be safe. You don't have to interact with anyone who's outside of your immediate family or your circle. I was like, this just makes so much sense. And I'm like, but you still feel together. You still feel that sense of community, which specifically here in Chicago, I mean, summertime Chicago, like summertime shy is what people love and what we, all look forward to all year round. So I really wanted to give people that experience of feeling together and being outside and doing all the things. So I really started looking at every open lot in the city. So I think I literally spoke to anyone who owns a parking lot or some type of surface area where cars could come together. I've probably spoken to everyone in the city. And they probably all thought I was crazy. And we got really lucky and we landed at Soldier Field, which was great because that's part of the Park District property as well. So we were able to kind of team up with them. And what happened in that whole kind of, turn of events was we went to the city and said, okay, we have this great idea. Here's logistically what we're thinking. And went through everything. And the city didn't, they weren't prepared for a pandemic. Who was? So they said, great. Well, we don't have a plan for events happening in a pandemic. So give us your best shot. So I basically wrote the playbook for live events to happen in Chicago during a pandemic. Which was, insane. At the time, I didn't even really realize I was doing it. I just knew I truly, truly, truly wanted people to feel safe. One of the questions we got a lot was like, okay, well, what's the bathroom situation? Things like that. And I wanted people to know, like, yes, when you go to a festival or a concert, you go to porta potties and they're not the cleanest.
No.
They're not what you would consider, clean or safe or sanitized or any of the things. But I wanted to change that. I wanted people to truly, feel safe, and I wanted it to be managed and maintained. So we got really nitty gritty with the details of, what our cleaning schedules would be, what our staff would be doing, what they would not be doing, what people were allowed to do or not to do, in terms of like crossover and that sort of thing. And we just kept going until we got it right. We went back to the city with a very, very, broad and laid out plan. And they accepted it. And was great. I mean, we actually, not only were we the first like large live event to happen in the city, but the people that kind of came after us were able to just work off of our framework that we had already built, which was great.
Wow. So so you started out with the playbook, as you call it. And what was next? I mean, you had the parking lot. I saw how I looked at some pictures on your website of how you set up the screens, 3 different screens on the shipping containers, right? Which was very cool. What else was part of the whole experience?
Yeah, so in terms of just some general logistics, because the lot at Soldier Field was so large, I mean, our capacity was over 400 cars per night, and that was all socially distanced. So, I mean, if we wanted to pack the house, I mean, that would have been over 800 cars each night. But we wanted to make sure, again, people felt safe. So we had every other vehicle in the parking lot the way we had it set up. So, I mean, our capacity was quite large. But because of that, it's a kind of a long, narrow lot. And we're sandwiched right between, Soldier Field and McCormick Place, but then we're right, west of the lake there, and then also Lakeshore Drive. So we're kind of right in the middle of everything. And because of that, we really needed to have 3 screens so that everybody had good viewing capability, which was really fun and unique because it made us different. No other drive-in had more than 1 screen. It wasn't very unique to us, which was really fun. Because you didn't expect to drive in and see these 3, 40-foot screens towering kind of over the city, which was really, really exciting. And yes, we did actually custom build those onto shipping containers. We brought those in, and those were custom built for that space for, the capacity that we needed. It was very interesting to kind of go through all the permitting processes and the build out of that. From a event build out perspective, we do this stuff all the time, but doing it in an outdoor location that's semi-permanent. I mean, we were out there we were out there for 10 weeks. And then I think we did another like 6 weeks after that. So, we had to build it to last and to be outside, and that's not really normal in the events world to be outside long. So it was really unique. It was a really interesting process, but what also kind of made it different is we had a stage. So it was more of a performance stage. The idea there was that we had, local performers come out and perform prior to showing a movie, which was really, really exciting. So we had, local performers come out. We had everything from small bands to individual soloists to DJs, and we would mix it up every night. And that was kind of our pre-movie performance or show that we put on. And the idea, kind of to what you were mentioning earlier, was that, yes, it was very much so an experience. Again, coming from the event world, this wasn't just a drive-in movie theater where you come in and have that nostalgic experience. It was kind of layering those things together in the sense that we had a drive-in, experience that was a very nostalgic feel. However, we layered in food trucks to make it feel urbanized. You had the city skyline as a backdrop, which was just beautiful. We had 3 large jumbo screens. We had pre-movie performances. We had contests and games that were, all either done like via your phone or, kind of a text-to situation. So everything was very socially safe. But also when you arrived, we had what we called was the red carpet. So you kind of got this really fun red carpet experience when cars entered. And on that red carpet, what we would do is actually hand off all kinds of giveaways and goodies from local businesses or sponsors. And it was really, really fun. So when people came in, you would, check in your vehicle, and then you would come around the bend and you'd hit this like bright red carpet. Mm-hmm. You would get a playbill at first, and that playbill would just say, tonight's movie screening, who's performing on stage, all of that kind of need to know information. And then we had a secondary space that was a food donation collection drop-off. So we partnered with the Greater Chicago Food Depository on that, and people could donate any canned goods that they wanted to donate. And then every station after that on that same red carpet was just fun giveaways. We had, Lifeway Kefir was giving away like smoothies and goodies. And then Heineken was giving away their new 0.0 like non-alcoholic beer product. Some nights, like on kids' nights, we would have kids' books and cards that we'd give away. Sometimes it was Cliff Bar. I mean, you name it. We've done all kinds of goodies and T-shirts and fun things that we gave away, which kind of made it feel somewhat of the festival experience that people have in the city. And that's kind of what we were going for. We wanted to elevate the experience. So it felt so much more than just coming in and watching a movie. It was truly like a full night out. So we would, open doors, you would go through this red carpet, socially safe sampling giveaway experience on the red carpet. And then once you drove in and got situated, we would have the performance playing up until the movie starting. And then we would intermittently have like contests and games where we give things away, whether it was like future movie tickets or, every night we actually gave away a socially safe cruise that we gave away every night. There was a lot of really fun things happening on site, which was just really taking that experience to the next level, but keeping it extremely safe and, like I said, COVID compliant.
That just sounds incredible, and how quickly you were able to throw it together. To make this experience happen this summer. So kind of a little bit more boring topic, but it's necessary these days. Like, how was the experience of keeping things COVID safe and compliant, as far as, being responsible for making sure that people wore their masks and were following the rules? What was that experience like?
Yeah, I would say, in the beginning, people were very, very respectful of all the rules, all the policies, all the procedures. And that was great. I mean, all we had to simply say was at check-in, if you're outside of your vehicle, mask on, covering your mouth and your nose. Here are the rules. We laid everything out, and people were very formidable, and they completely abided by the guidelines. Obviously, as time went on and people kind of got frustrated or tired of, just living this weird new normal that we were living in, I think it was a little bit harder to enforce rules. But the team did a really, really great job. Our team jumped in, and they, we come from a very service first approach. And that's how we approached everything that we did. And we would just have, very calm, cool, and collected conversations if someone wasn't following a rule. But for us, that was just part of our daily task of making sure people felt safe and letting them know, like, this is honestly for your benefit. Yeah. And if we weren't following these rules and guidelines, not only are we, would we be assisting in the problem instead of the solution, but we wouldn't even be able to have this event at all. Right. So it was, us doing our part to make sure that they were safe, the people around them were safe, but also that, we could even have the event at all. Because we were one of very few things even happening in the city at that time. I will say that one thing that was really interesting was what we always consider kind of back of house operations became front of house operations. So, it was something like, you never really want to see someone cleaning the bathroom at a restaurant, right? That's not sexy. That's not pretty. It's not what you want to see. But we wanted people to know, like, we are actively cleaning our surfaces. We are actively cleaning the restrooms and maintaining our spaces. So we would, those kind of back of house roles became a front of house role. And, we would kind of stop what we were doing, clean everything down. And it was very much so, I don't want to say a show, but it was very much so a part of making sure people see and saw and were aware of what we were doing to make them truly feel safe. Because it's one thing if someone says they put something on a table that says, oh, this has been sanitized. But when you see them doing it and you see them doing it thoroughly, now you feel much safer. You're like, okay, so they actually cleaned it from corner to corner, from top to bottom. I physically witnessed it. So that was really interesting, was that, taking those roles that normally we're like, oh, it's something you don't really want to see. You want to do it when people aren't around. We actually would kind of stop right in the middle of everything, clean and sanitize everything right in front of everyone. And then in addition to that, there were just regular practices and procedures that we just did day in and day out. All vendors and staff, we all were, screen checked at the gate before we even came into the property. And then actually when we got our staff to our kind of bubble, we would also do the same thing upon check-in, just so we had our separate contact tracing ability. Obviously, masks were required by all of our staff and vendor teams the entire time. There was never a moment on site without a mask and gloves. So we went through a lot of gloves this summer. And it's funny because, we think of gloves as like, oh, that's something you would wear for cleaning and that sort of thing. But we, if we were managing anything a guest would see or touch or be around, we were trying to just protect them, So we wore gloves for all of our socially safe sampling, for ticketing and check-in. And then just when we're roaming the lot, if we had to help or assist with something, we had, the proper equipment to make sure that we were doing so safely. Especially as, information was coming out about being, you could have it and basically not even know it. And that was really scary, knowing to be walking around and not know I could have COVID right now and have no idea and be asymptomatic. That was really scary. So for us to take and go the extra mile was super, super important to make sure that, if for some reason that, we don't know, we are still protecting ourselves from the unknown. And that was just part of our daily practices. And we cleaned restrooms a lot, contact surfaces at the food trucks and that sort of thing we would wipe down. And then in addition to that, just anytime we were managing or handling anything a guest would ever come in contact with, we always had, proper, wearing gloves and all of that as well.
Yeah. That's such a, that's a part of the new normal now with, like you said, making that almost a front of the house thing. You want people to see that you are taking the steps that you need to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really think of it that way before, but it is part of it now, is just having that visible, comfort level of knowing. So did you provide, were there concessions or anything like that part of it?
Yeah. So the way we had structured our tickets were that, if you purchased one ticket, it was good for the entire car. And in each car, you could have up to 6 people. And with that, with that ticket of up to 6 people, that would include a bucket of popcorn. So when you came on site, you would be given a voucher that you could claim at Concessions for your bucket of popcorn, which was, again, just kind of making that nostalgic drive-in experience, kind of bringing that back, bringing that, element back to it was fun for us. And then in addition to that, when you got up to the concession stand, whether you're just redeeming your popcorn ticket, you could also buy, food and drink and all of that. So all of the basics like, candies and sodas, and then beer and wine we actually had available as well. And then nightly we would have a rotating food truck. So every night we would bring in a different food truck. Sometimes it was tacos, sometimes it was pizza. We had bento boxes and all kinds of random things that we had on site, but it kind of mixed it up, it changed it up a little bit for us. And like I said, it kind of urbanized the drive-in. People think of a drive-in in the deep backwoods of kind of rural America. And
around where I am.
Yeah, and we were bringing that experience to literally the heart of Chicago. We were, like I said, sandwiched right there between the lake and Lakeshore Drive, just south of the stadium, and the city was our backdrop. So it was really cool to have kind of that urban experience on top of the nostalgic experience. So, the concessions provided those nostalgic goodies of candies and popcorn. And then the drive-in had kind of our hot food and all of that, which was actually part of our COVID compliance as well. Because there was no true cooking of food on site unless it was in a contained environment, such as a food truck. So that was part of it as well.
I love it. Now, I am a country girl. I'm from that rural area, grew up going to drive-ins, and I, love it. It's just, in the summer being outside and watching the movie, the whole experience is so awesome. And that's part of the reason why I've been really excited to see all the pop-up drive-in experiences around, Canada and the United States, and I'm sure even globally, they're doing it in Europe as well. But I just love seeing that base experience added to and becoming, a way for people to socially get together and get out. So it looks like it's been wildly successful. Have you been you said 10 weeks plus another 6 that you operated it?
Yeah, so we ran the program for a full 10 weeks at 5 days a week, which was a lot. So we ran Wednesday through Sunday every week for 10 straight weeks, which was great. It was a lot of fun, extremely well received. One thing that was really important to me was kind of bringing that service and that hospitality part to it as well. And that was one of our 2 top pieces of feedback, was that one, that the staff was incredibly nice and so friendly. They're like, you guys are like clearly having fun. And that was really important. That I wanted the team to have fun, but I wanted people to feel like, hey, we're together but separate, but we can still have fun. And I think we definitely got that through to them, because that was a big part of our feedback. And then second to that, our second big piece of feedback was just the COVID compliance. Like, we had a lot of families say, this is the only thing that we're really allowing our kids to do, or taking our families to come out to, because we feel safe here. It's outside. We see you guys cleaning. We see you enforcing the rules. We can come here, we can have fun, we can get food, but it's all safe still. And because of kind of how we were operating, they felt safe coming back, which was really, really great. It was quite the experience. Like I said, never in a million years did I think I would be running and operating a drive-in. But in the year of a pandemic, I guess you just keep moving until something makes sense.
Do what you have to do. Yeah. Couple more questions on that before we kind of turn and talk a little bit more about your event planning businesses. Do you think you will do this again next year? Or do you think it's something that you will keep going?
Yeah, I have gotten that question a lot. You're definitely not the first person to ask. So like you had mentioned earlier, we did run for a full 10 weeks, our regular program. And then after that, our regular program had shut down, mostly because kids were back in school. Businesses were picking back up in terms of, going back to work and that sort of thing. And also, it's just getting cold in Chicago. It gets cold.
Oh, yeah.
So we kind of limited that. And then that last 6 weeks, we just were open for private events. So we had done like some concerts, some brand events, that sort of thing, which were really, really well received, really successful. And then as we start to, look at 2021 and beyond, we're kind of still in that phase of going through and deciding what 2021 is going to look like. Not sure if we will have, a permanent drive-in specifically at Soldier Field, or if we'll move it somewhere else, or if we'll just kind of do pop-ups throughout the city, or we're still working through that. So it was so fun. And we learned a lot along the way. Like I said, I've never ran a theater before, so
you can add that to your resume.
Absolutely. And yes, we're still kind of deciding and trying to project of like what's going to happen next year, especially with events. Are they coming back? Are they not? When are they? That sort of thing. I will say I really do think that drive-in events in some form or fashion or some capacity will be around for at least 2021, possibly 22. It's in a weird way a fad that kind of came full circle. But I think it'll be here to stay, at least in the interim, so that conferences can happen. Maybe they're a drive-in conference, a drive-in meeting, a drive-in movie or concert. We produced those, and some of those private events that we produced, they were drive-in concerts, drive-in movies, drive-in meetings, that sort of thing, and brand events. And I think that, people aren't going to be 100% comfortable coming back to full-scale events as we knew them previously right away. That's not going to happen immediately. So I think for people to kind of put their toes back in, they'd feel comfortable driving in and attending a concert, a movie, a meeting, a conference, versus, full-fledged being in a enclosed space in a ballroom at a hotel or somewhere, otherwise. So I do think drive-in events are here to stay, and will definitely be a big part of that. in a way, we were somewhat the innovators of this and the creators of this kind of platform, is specifically in the city. And we've worked with a couple of companies and brands and bringing some of their smaller events to life. So I think that'll be something that we continue to do definitely through 2021. Not sure exactly what that looks like quite yet. We're still building that out, but okay, it's exciting.
Sounds like that's a week by week thing. I saw one of the presentations I saw yesterday on Texie Talk talked about 3 to 5 years before we're completely back to a normal that we had, back at the beginning of this year. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it will definitely have some type of place for a year or two to come at least. Yeah. One last thing, I read a couple of things. I feel like there was an element of community give back or whatever in this whole process. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we actually partnered with the Greater Chicago Food Depository. And they were such a great partner for so many reasons. We actually kind of went to them first and said, we just want to partner with you. We want to give back. If anything, this time should teach us that we need to be more of a community than anything. And their need, which we learned that their need had gone up over 120% through the pandemic. And they are servicing and giving food and product and to every, schools, to communities, to homes, to food donation shelters around the Chicagoland area. So they're really impacting people in a way that they truly, truly need. And as many of us know, many people have lost their jobs, and what was for some people, paycheck to paycheck to paycheck became very scarce, and it was very scary, and they needed the resources that the food depository was providing for their families. So it was great to work with them because they're doing some really amazing work in Chicago and beyond. And to support that just felt really good and felt right. It was definitely like an immediate need that we could help now. It's not, not to say that like funding research and those sort of things, those are great causes as well. But this was a need that was immediate and people really needed tomorrow and today. So it was great to work with them. So we had kind of a multi-layered partnership with them. On one front, we gave a percentage of our sales back to them. So they did get part of our ticket sales. And then in addition to that, we basically became a donation drop-off station for them. Awesome. And so when people came into the drive-in, we would ask like, oh, do you have any donations for us today? And people bring in canned goods and pastas and all the things. And that was great. It was so nice to see how many people, donated and gave back. And honestly, I wasn't sure how much we would receive. And I wasn't sure what the participation would look like. And I was floored. Like every week I would go every Tuesday and I would drop off all the canned goods and all the, donations from the week. And every week we had hundreds of pounds of food to donate to them. And that just felt so good every week to, come back and say, oh, this week we had 300 pounds or 200 pounds or however much it was. And, to see that people were actively wanting to give and wanting to participate and wanting to do good, just, it kind of restores your faith in humanity and made us feel good. And it was so great because I know that they need the help and it's directly affecting our communities, which felt so, so great.
Well, I have really enjoyed hearing about those and how it all came to be. And I admire you and your group, your team. And I feel like I read that you employed quite a few people outside of your team, right, to make all this happen?
Yeah, we did. So we are initially a very small team. There's usually about 6 or 7 of us on a regular basis. And through this, obviously, the big thing was I wanted to keep them employed and keep everybody rolling through all of this, which was great. That happened. But obviously with a event of this magnitude and everything that it required to make these pieces and parts come together, it required more staff. So we did hire on a couple of additional people, which was great. So our personal team expanded. And then in addition to that, just to see the ripple effect of what we were able to do by bringing this event together was so amazing. I mean, like our audiovisual partner, I mean, they now had a regular gig to work 5 days a week for 10 plus weeks. And same with the catering team, same with, the security teams and the staff at Soldier Field. So that was really great to see how far, what an idea of bringing people together and giving them something to do and to have a sense of community actually impacted so much more than that. And that felt so, so good. One night I had one of the members of the security team come up to me and say, they were like, thank you. Not only was this like really fun to watch and come together and see it all just actually take place, they're like, but I wouldn't be working otherwise. I wouldn't have anything to do. So thank you for like keeping me employed. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. And we actually, when this was all said and done, we, obviously not directly, but through our vendor partners and through our own business, we were able to employ or put back to work over 85 people, and over 10 Chicago-based businesses were impacted by it. So that felt like $1 million, especially right now when our industry is just, I keep saying, like upside down and inside out. So it felt really good to feel that, people were back to work, they were working, we gave them some passion, some purpose, something to do, some money back in their pocket, and kind of that small business economy kept that circle rolling.
Well, congratulations on the success of it. It's very cool. And I look forward to next year, hopefully if things get better and we're opened up a little bit more and you have that going on, my husband and I will have to come up and go attend tonight.
It really is a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with it. Like I said, it was so much more of an experience. The idea was, it truly was a night out. The performances were amazing. And every night it was different. It's like our music performers would change out, the movies would change out, all of the games and the giveaways and all that, those things would kind of rotate in and out. And that made it fun and exciting. So we had multiple families that would come back week after week, or couples that would come back week after week because they had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And they were like, we love this. We're like, we would do this in a non-pandemic. This is great. But that felt really good. So I think you guys would have a blast.
Yes. Yeah. And then just imagining the Chicago skyline, to back it all up. Sounds awesome.
I think I have over 1,000 photos of the skyline from this summer.
I bet.
I can't help but take a picture every time I'm out there. And I'm like, I know I have about, 1,000 other of the same photo, but I'm going to take another one because today's a different day.
Yes, I get that. I do that with sunsets around here.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about your companies, about Wedicity and Field Events. How did you get started in the events industry?
Honestly, I've always been in and around hospitality in general. So, like many, many others, started in restaurants, and there was a server and actually, if I really want to go back, I was actually a dishwasher, and then I was the cashier at the front hostess stand, and then I was a busser, and then I was a waiter, and then I was a bartender. And I kind of worked my way up through the restaurant side of things first. And then I honestly have kind of had a little bit of experience in a lot of different areas in hospitality, which has been great. So although a lot of my background is in food and beverage and operations on that end, I've worked in hotels, worked for Marriott for a while, which was a really good experience to see how, the back end of event operations on a hotel level works. But I also worked for a DMC for a short time. And then I also worked for an association management company, which I loved. And we did a lot of meetings, conferences, and all of that. So I've really been fortunate to work in a lot of different areas. And collectively, kind of all of that experience layered on itself and brought me to now owning two event businesses.
So what made you decide? Wedicity came first, right? What made you decide to, now what is that mostly weddings? When you started that, you were doing mostly weddings?
Yeah, so Wedicity is definitely, it's primarily a wedding-based business. And I started that in 2012. And that honestly, I always say I kind of fell into weddings. I didn't know I would end up, having a business that was largely based in this sector of the market. I just kind of ended up here. But to kind of go back a little bit, I did, and I think it was 2004, I was certified as a wedding planner, and I was just like, okay, this is great. Kind of gives me the knowledge, the background. I wanted to know the history and kind of the baseline understanding of like ceremonies and weddings and just how that all worked. And then I was fortunate enough to work underneath a wedding planner out of Columbus, Ohio, where I'm originally from. And she taught me the logistical ropes of wedding planning. And I was really fortunate to work with her. She was great. She was a great mentor. We still keep in touch. And I learned a lot. But when I left Columbus and I moved to Chicago, I kind of left the wedding business behind a bit. And that's when I was more in the hotel operations realm. And when I was working in hotels, I kind of was just like, okay, that was a part of my story. Next, on to the next thing. And then randomly, I had a colleague who said, hey, I have a friend who needs a wedding coordinator. Didn't you used to plan weddings? And I was like, yeah, I did. It's kind of a lot. I was like, yeah, I used to plan weddings. And I was like, I know what I'm doing. I was like, but I'll be very honest. I was like, I don't know the vendors here because I didn't. I was still new to the city. I didn't, I hadn't really reestablished those relationships. She's like, well, just have a conversation and you'll take it from there. So honestly, that one recommendation became my first client, which then became another referral and then another referral and another referral. And I've done, I think in that kind of lineage, I've done maybe 5 or 6 friends or, so's weddings. And then I had a business. And it came very naturally. I mean, like I said, I've always been in events and hospitality. So all of this made a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And then in 2016, 17, that's when I went totally full time. So I like the very, I would say that first like 4-ish years, I was doing what most people do is, kind of dabbling on both sides. Yeah. I had a full-time job and then I was working, weddings when I could and when I could take them. And then when I finally decided to, go all in, it was like a light switch. I went from, I was kind of in, and then I went 100% in. And it was a lot of fun because then I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. And then I just, like I said, I turned on like a light switch, and it was really fun. We went, like doubled my event business within a year, and then doubled it again. And it was very rapid fire after that. But I think that's something that a lot of people, especially when you're, have your side hustle or have your, side gig making, doing whatever you love. And then once you kind of really decide to go all in, it's like that fire just gets ignited inside of you. It's so exciting. And then you really hit the ground running. So that was kind of what it was like for me. It was a lot of fun. And then, like I said, then, fast forward, we kind of got referrals for non-wedding work. And then that's kind of how we stemmed into creating field events.
Okay. So what would you say the balance is between the two companies now? Do you do one type of event more than the other?
To be fair, field events is still very much in, its infantry phase, okay. Or stage, if you will. So it's still very much so a baby. Mm-hmm. Because we hit the ground running during a pandemic, and then we created the drive-in, and now in an odd but really exciting way, we're kind of known as like the go-to people for drive-in events. So we've had a lot of conversations with, companies and brands around how do we do this? How do we do this well? What is your experience? How can we work together on this? And that's been really, really great. So I think because we are so new, we're still kind of navigating exactly where we're going to end up in the market. But I mean, who knows? Maybe for the next year or two, we'll just be known as the drive-in event company. Who knows? think I've somewhat given up on trying to predict the future.
Yeah.
I was really, really, really wrong in March when I was like, oh, this will be a couple of weeks. We'll be
I know.
And I was incredibly wrong. So I realized really quickly that I shouldn't try to, be there.
Well, I predict that really big things are coming down the pike for you after this summer.
I hope so. And we're ready for it. I mean, it was, like I said, it was so exciting. It was really fun. We really enjoyed, the people we worked with. We enjoyed, the experiences we were able to create. And we've got some really fun ideas that's been, kind of working on our docket. So would love to make those come to fruition, whether they're through us or through another company or brand or, organization. I think it would be really fun to work on those projects. So I'm hoping that, this sticks around for a while.
Yeah. So what's next for you since the drive-in is closed down because of winter? What's up for you coming through the winter? Well, I want to ask you about virtual and hybrid events, but I'll let you ask the first part, answer the first part of the question first.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm not entirely sure what's next. Like I said, we're just trying to focus very much so on, what does the future of Wedicity look like? What does the future of field events look like? And kind of establishing our place in the market, because field events is young. We want to make sure that we're building it in the right way, that as we move forward, it's long withstanding and people do see us as the go-to for this side of events. And then for Wedicity, I mean, we still have clients that we that have postponed to 2021, and now we might be looking at another postponement. So we're working through those things as well on the wedding side, which is, it's terribly unfortunate. And we're trying to just work through those like one at a time. But like I said, I think I've always been very much so like, let's think ahead. Let's try to project and forecast for what's going to happen. I've always set pretty lofty goals for, my businesses and myself. And although I still am a goal setter and those things won't change, they've somewhat shifted around a little bit. So like I said, instead of saying these hard and fast goals and these, hard and fast numbers, it's much more about like longevity, I think, more than it is about a strict, hey, in 2021, I need to meet this, financial threshold or so on and so forth. I think it's a little bit more broad scope than it has been in the past.
And fluid, right? It's like your goals have to be fluid right now, because from one week to the next, you're not sure what it's going to be like outside your home.
I know. And, and for some people I say, if your goal this week is literally to just take a shower and get out of bed, that's okay. That's fine. Trust me, I have those weeks too. Sometimes it's like, I just need to get motivated. Like, let me just get to motivation and then I can keep going. And, we're all living in a new world, and specifically for us in the hospitality and service and events industries, we've been impacted very, very heavily. So, it's okay. I keep saying, like, it's okay to not be okay. I had to figure that out for myself as well before I can even say it today. There's, a long time where I'm like, this is not great. But it's okay. We'll all get there, and hopefully this has taught us something, and hopefully, we'll learn from this. I've learned a lot about, contracts and revising those, and what does that look like moving forward. And I think that's taught a lot to the industry about our contracts and how we need to change on that front. But even small things like practices and policies, like how are we enforcing those? How are we not enforcing those? And I think there's been a lot of education that has come from that. There was a couple of days on site when we were like sanitizing everything and being very, chaotic about making sure everything was extremely clean. And we just had this moment where we're like, why didn't we do this before? If you think about it, it's actually kind of gross that we didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm like, maybe that's something that comes of this, is that, we're just a much cleaner, safer industry, and not just for us, but for everyone. So, I think some good can come from this.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, hybrid and online events, have you gotten into any of that yet?
Yeah, we've done a little bit of virtual, not a whole lot to be honest, but we've kind of dabbled here and there. I do believe that regardless of where this is going and how far this will last and all of that, hybrid events are going to be here for a while. Kind of to your point earlier when you were saying some people say it might be 3 or 4 years or 5 years before we're totally back to normal. And they're likely right. So I think there will be a large contingency of folks that are not comfortable going into any event. So they will, they want to participate, they want to be a part of it, and they will join virtually. And then there will be some folks that will feel comfortable going into a room and that sort of thing. And I think hybrid events will definitely be a big part of what we do moving forward. Technology is only getting better. We were already seeing that, pre-pandemic. We're already seeing hybrid events happen. We're already seeing, the mass infusion of technology and using that to, bring in speakers that maybe couldn't otherwise be there, and kind of layering in those different type of technology. So that's here to stay. That's not going anywhere. It's only going to be more, if anything. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I mean, we've already seen the evolution of a lot of online platforms, and I think that's really interesting to see. I've done a lot of demos with some of these either technology or audiovisual companies who are kind of pivoting as well and going much more in the virtual space. And some of the things that they're creating are really, really amazing. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens next, and how it continues to layer on. Because I can't imagine anything else. I know I said I didn't want to try to predict the future, but I will say I'm pretty sure this will be on for a while.
Yes, I agree. So just to kind of wrap things up, it's been great chatting with you today. Thank you for coming on. I wanted to ask you, what's a great pivot that you've seen from, either one of your vendors or friends or up there in Chicago that you've just really thought was a great idea?
Oh my gosh. I actually don't know this owner personally, but I watched something he interviewed on, and I can't recall which platform it was on, but it was a gentleman who owns a company called Platinum Events, and they are typically an events firm, decor, production, the works. And I mean, obviously they lost work just like the rest of us, and he pivoted extremely quickly, and not just quickly, but the amount of education he had to consume and the amount of certification that he had to consume to just make this happen so quickly was quite impressive. And he pivoted to from Platinum Events to Platinum Sanitation. He became a sanitation company. So same thing. So he could keep his doors open and keep his revenue flowing and keep his team employed, which I thought was beautiful. And fulfilling a true need. Obviously, these companies need people to come in and do full cleans and to sanitize their workstations and so on and so forth. So from what I gathered from that, they do mostly focus on corporate, corporate offices or, restaurants and things like that, event facilities, not necessarily like your home, but more of, the broad use buildings and commercial buildings. And I thought that was fantastic. We moved very quick with the drive-in. I learned a lot very quickly about licensing and, movie licensing and all kinds of random things that I'd never had to really have my hands in before. But for him, he shifted gears entirely.
That is incredible.
Yeah. Also on my end, I still stayed in my wheelhouse. It was still producing events. So even though I pivoted, it wasn't quite as major of a pivot as it was for him to learn the sanitation requirements and restrictions and all. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how much he had to do so quickly. So I thought that was quite impressive.
That is probably one of the most extreme pivots I've heard about. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, offline, I can give you his information. I find it fascinating. And like, I actually don't even know him personally, but I know he's well respected in the industry.
Well, that's one of the positives that's come out of all of this is, all the innovation and the creativity coming from all types of people, but being focused on the events industry, just seeing the creativity that's come from it is very cool. And this is how innovation happens, and it's definitely happening, rapidly.
Yeah, and right before our eyes. I mean, I know the restaurant industry has been hit pretty hard as well, and they've made some big changes and into their procedures and their outdoor spaces. And I mean, it's really interesting to see what people have come up with. And my heart goes out to everybody in the service industry. It's a tough time, especially in restaurants. It's already a very small margin. It's like restaurants and food and beverages, my background, so I know it extremely well. And my heart pours out for everyone who's, living this reality right now. It's definitely a tough world.
Yes. I hope some help is on the way soon.
As do I.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say thank you for, having me on. It was fun. I truly love what I do. I love what we accomplished this summer. The drive-in, we had named it Shy Together. So it was very much so about, bringing Chicago together. And under Fueled Events, we were able to make that happen. I'm very proud of my team. I think that's probably one thing I didn't touch on as much today was that how much of a impact the team made on our progress and being able to just keep us going for 10 weeks and really pivoting with me, which was beautiful. So I appreciate my team and I can put into words. But they've been amazing. And, as we kind of navigate this next set of new waters of, what's next, what does 21 look like for both weddings and, corporate events, it'll be interesting, but we're constantly learning and growing. And if anyone has questions on like drive-in events or how to implement that or, COVID compliance, I'm an open book. So feel free to reach out.
Yep. At Fueled Events, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You've got it.
Great. FueledEvents.com. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been awesome chatting with you. And I wish you guys the best moving forward. I'll be excited to see what comes next. I love following what you do.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.